friend. You're listening to The Sustainable Body Worker, the podcast for massage therapists who want to grow thriving, purpose-led businesses without the burnout. Here we talk about nervous system aligned business strategy, pricing that makes sense, client work that doesn't deplete you, and how to build a career that actually supports your life. I'm your host, Gretchen Pop, massage therapist, mentor, educator, and recovering overachiever. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Sustainable Body Worker. As always, I'm so happy to be here with you today. Now, if you've been listening to the last couple of episodes, then you know that I've been making a case for something that I really believe our profession needs more of, which is thoughtful, intentional employers. And I'm going to continue on this thread. We don't need just more people hiring because they're maxed out. We don't need more businesses bringing on bodies to fill rooms. No more people just scaling because they think that that's what success is supposed to look like. I mean actual employers, leaders, people who are willing to create a place where another practitioner can genuinely thrive. This is what's missing in the massage therapy profession because we have this black and white option of being an employee and being underpaid in that scenario and not necessarily vibing with the culture there, or going solopreneur and all of a sudden we have to be a business owner and wear all of the hats. And I really think that when the people who are really thriving as an employer and do a really good job in leadership, then it can create a really amazing space for people who will thrive better as employees. So today, I want to talk about what that really looks like, because it's one thing to hire someone, and it is another thing entirely to become the kind of employer that good therapists actually want to stay with. And this matters so much more than a lot of people think about. Turnover is expensive. It is exhausting. It is incredibly disruptive to the culture. It's disruptive to the client experience. And frankly, if you are constantly cycling through practitioners, there is usually something deeper going on than just people don't want to work or it's so hard to find good employees. What I want people to walk away from this episode understanding is that there are a lot of different reasons why certain employees stay long term, and there's a huge benefit to keeping good people long term. We want them to stay. We want to build something that actually has continuity, trust, and depth to it. But different personalities are going to want different things. For example, I know about myself that I am multi-talented. I get bored really quickly being stuck in one little box. That's why I have a podcast. That's why I teach cupping. That's why I teach business strategy. That's why from the outside, it probably looks like I'm always bouncing around doing different things. I am not someone who would be satisfied just kind of being a massage therapist in one lane forever. So if someone wanted to keep me long term, they would need to be able to see the value I bring and either integrate that into the business somehow, or at the very least celebrate it and not make me feel like I need to shrink to stay there. And I think that's a really important lens for employers to have. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see is that business owners treat practitioners like they are interchangeable, like they're just another massage therapist. Like if one leaves, another one can fill the room and it will all basically be the same. That's not true. And I've seen practices where they actually try to streamline in such a way or keep the menu simple enough so that that would be possible just in case they leave. And that's not helpful either. When someone's really valuable to your business, when they have a way with clients, when they bring a particular skill set, when their reviews say something specific about the way that they make people feel, when they serve a certain kind of clientele especially well, that matters. And when a practitioner feels seen for what they specifically bring to the business instead of feeling like a cog in the machine, they're much more likely to stay. I also think we need to be honest that human beings in general want growth. Now, not everyone in the exact same way, of course, but generally speaking, people like to feel that they are going somewhere. They like to feel that they are growing, that they're valued, that their effort means something, and that they're not just going to do the exact same thing forever with no increase in opportunity, income, autonomy, or recognition. Raises matter, bonuses matter, opportunities to shine matter. Creating space for someone to grow beyond the bare minimum of the role matters. And people stay when they feel like they're part of something purposeful. This is one of the reasons I talk so much about mission, vision, and values inside the membership, because If you, as the business owner, are not clear on what the deeper purpose of your business is, it's a whole lot harder to call in people who actually align with it. And people don't stay long term in businesses that they don't feel aligned with. They just don't, no matter how much they get paid. If something feels off in terms of values, eventually they're going to leave. But when they feel like they're a part of a business that means something, that stands for something, and is growing towards something that they believe in, then they feel like they are a part of something more than just a paycheck. Now, some employers get a little too casual about turnover. I saw this in the franchise world a lot. Someone would work their way up, become highly valuable, start earning more, start asking for some flexibility or benefits or certain accommodations because they had seniority. And instead of seeing that person as an asset worth keeping, the attitude was more like, well, they're expensive now. Let's just replace them with someone cheaper. And I want to be really clear that this is short-term thinking because, yes, maybe on paper, it looks like it costs less to hire a new practitioner at a lower pay rate, but you're forgetting the cost of training, the cost of onboarding, the cost of rebuilding trust, the cost of client disruption, and the cost of starting all over again. If someone is genuinely bringing value to the business, it's usually far more beneficial to invest in keeping them than to keep resetting the whole process. So, what actually makes massage therapists want to stay? In my opinion, more than anything, it is culture. There's a book called Bring Your Human to Work that really gets into company culture, and I think it is such an important concept for employers to understand. People stay where they feel like they're making a positive impact, where they feel valued, and where the culture aligns with their value system. They stay where they feel like the environment makes sense to them as a human, not just as a worker. And on the flip side, one of the biggest reasons good therapists leave is because they're not being valued for what they actually provide. Sometimes that looks like not being marketed appropriately. The business wants to keep them in a certain box, even though they bring something really important to the table that could be better highlighted. Sometimes it looks like not being paid enough. Sometimes it looks like not being booked enough. Sometimes it looks like the business owner being so focused on other things that they're not doing the work required to keep their people supported and busy. And this is such a huge one in our profession because, unlike a lot of other jobs, this is not usually a straight salary situation where someone shows up Monday through Friday, gets a set paycheck, and that is that. If someone is not on the table, they're not getting paid. So, you, as the employer, it's your job to make sure your employee is as booked as possible. That means more than posting a couple of openings on social media and hoping for the best. It means real marketing. It means rebooking systems. It means waitlist strategy. It means getting creative and helping them build trust with your clients. One of the things I did toward the end of owning my clinic that practitioners were really grateful for was paying an hourly base rate for the time they were there, even if they weren't actively booked, and then layering commission on top when they did have sessions. That meant if someone showed up and had downtime, they still had work to do and they were still compensated. They could help with laundry, cleaning, social media, odds and ends around the business. There's always something you can find for someone to do. I promise you this. For the right person, that was huge because they didn't feel like they were just sitting there hoping someone would book last minute. They felt like they could contribute and still be paid for their time. Now, not everyone wants that. Some people are perfectly happy to have more independence, more hands-off structure, fewer moving parts. And that's why the distinction between an employee and a room renter or a contractor matters so much. But if you are building an employee culture, and especially if you want people who really contribute to the growth of the business, then you need to think beyond just putting them on the schedule and hoping that they stay. So let's talk about communication, because this is another huge piece of what makes people stay. To me, good communication starts with onboarding. I really believe in a strong 90-day onboarding process, and I go into that in detail inside the First Time Employer's Guide. I'm not saying that my exact process is the only right way to do it or that anything I'm sharing in these episodes is the only way to do it. All of this is my opinion based off of my experience. I personally, admittedly, made plenty of mistakes in my own business, and I'm not trying to act like I did everything perfectly. But one thing I have learned is that people feel a whole lot safer and a whole lot more successful when they know what's expected of them, where to ask questions, and how to communicate their needs. That means having an employer handbook, writing down your expectations of them clearly, not assuming that people will just pick it up and figure it out. And it means giving people multiple ways to communicate because different people communicate differently. Some people process visually, some people prefer text, some people want to have things written down so that they can refer back to them later, right? I really liked using the program called Slack for this because it helps keep communication organized. You can separate things into channels, search in past conversations, you can share documents and keep management level things separate from more general communication. But whether you use Slack or something else, the point isn't the platform. The point is that people should know exactly where to go for what. Time off requests should have a place. Scheduling questions should have a place. Administrative things should have a place. When people don't know how to reach you or where to ask something, they start holding things in, second guessing themselves or feeling like they're bothering you, right? And that doesn't build trust. Feedback is another big one. A lot of massage therapists are people pleasers. I've talked about this before, and we all know this is true. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to create tension. So even if you tell your people that you're open to feedback, it's still really important to actively invite it and prompt it, ask for it. In a larger team, even having some avenue for anonymous feedback can be really beneficial because some people need that buffer in order to be truly transparent. And then there's the really uncomfortable part of leadership, which is mistakes. I'm just going to be honest with you. You're going to make them. Your employees are going to make them too. And clients are going to have experiences that you need to repair. And one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that when a mistake costs your employee income and it was your mistake, you need to eat that loss. I learned this firsthand when I hired a practitioner who had just graduated massage school. I brought her on as an admin while we waited for her license to come through, and once it did, we started getting her booked with clients. And I had somehow convinced myself that she was trained in prenatal massage. I could have sworn I saw it on her resume, but I booked her with a pregnant client and then mentioned it to her beforehand, only to find out that she wasn't certified in prenatal at all. That was my mistake, not hers. So I made sure she was paid for the missed session as though she had given it. I got the client appropriately taken care of, and then I went a step further and brought in a prenatal instructor to train the whole team so we could make that right moving forward. That cost me money, yes, but it also showed the practitioner that I valued her, respected her time, and was willing to repair what I had messed up. That's leadership. Not pretending that mistakes won't happen or getting defensive or acting like it's someone else's problem. Owning it, fixing it, and making the next best move, making sure it doesn't happen again. And honestly, that applies even when the other person did something irresponsible that technically wasn't your fault, right? I had an employee once who simply didn't show up for work one day. No message, no phone call, nothing. We had to scramble and get someone there for the client who was waiting outside of the locked door, and it was incredibly stressful. And yes, that employee was irresponsible. But at the end of the day, I still see that as reflecting back on me as the leader because there had been red flags before that, and I had ignored them. I hadn't responded to those red flags decisively enough, and then I paid for that later. So when I say that leadership means owning mistakes, I mean all of it. It means being willing to say, even when someone else dropped the ball, what was my part in allowing this to happen? It's the same with conflict. If there's conflict in your business, that's yours to address. Yes, you are hiring adults. Yes, they should ideally know how to handle themselves, but you're still the leader. And if there's tension, confusion, clashing personalities, unclear expectations, or ongoing friction, you don't get to just leave that in the hands of your employees and hope that they sort it out. You need to lead. You need to clarify. You need to mediate. You need to figure out whether the issue is a mismatch, a communication problem, or something deeper in the culture. And I keep coming back to this phrase because it has really stuck with me from John Maxwell. The L in leader stands for listen. A good leader listens. They don't just dictate. They don't just react. They don't just assume that they know best because they own the business. They listen. Now, that doesn't mean every piece of feedback means that you bend the whole business around one person. It also doesn't mean that every employee is the right employee to build around. But it does mean that you listen well enough to understand what is actually going on. Sometimes listening helps you realize that someone isn't aligned. Sometimes it helps them realize that too. Sometimes it helps you spot a gap in your systems, or maybe it shows you where you need to grow as a leader. But either way, listening is a huge part of what makes people feel respected. And support is another major piece of retention. Some practitioners want more mentorship than others. Some want continuing education support. Maybe they need help learning how to read book better. Some want emotional support and a sense that they're not alone. Some want reimbursement for continuing ed, or they want to feel like you're invested in their growth. Some are more independent and want less. And this is why it's so important to know what kind of team culture you're actually trying to build. But in general, people thrive when they feel seen, supported, and set up to succeed from the get-go. Rebooking support is a really great example here. A lot of practitioners are never really taught how to rebook well. If you've built a strong practice, chances are you are probably really good at rapport, pretty good at communicating value, and pretty darn good at naturally guiding clients into the next appointment. That might not come naturally to a new employee, even if their hands-on work is excellent. But that's a skill you can teach. Role play it, give them scripts, help them build confidence around it. If you want them to stay booked, which again is your responsibility, right? Don't assume that they already know how to create that. Now let's talk systems and boundaries, because this is where a workplace starts to feel either solid and trustworthy or vague and stressful. People need to know how things work. So consider, how do they communicate with you? Who do they go to for what? How do they request time off? What happens if they're running late? What happens if a client is late? What are the cancellation and rescheduling policies? Who enforces those, and when do the exceptions happen? Because I know all of us have exceptions around those sometimes, right? What are the expectations around their schedule? What are the communication boundaries outside of work hours? And what's the standard around session timing and not running over? Now, these things might sound basic, but they matter so much because when they're not clear, people end up either overstepping, under-communicating, or living in a kind of low-grade anxiety where they're never quite sure what the right thing is. And that brings me to checklists. Now, I know checklists are not sexy, but they are one of the most practical things you can give your team. Opening checklists, closing checklists, room reset checklists, laundry checklists, administrative checklists. Even if the task seems basic and repetitive, people do better when they know exactly what, quote, done right looks like. It doesn't insult their intelligence, I promise you. It supports consistency. And consistency is what makes a workplace feel trustworthy for both the employee and the client. Compensation is the other big piece here, and I want to be really careful in talking about this because there is no one-size-fits-all answer. What makes pay fair is going to depend on the business, the overhead, the pricing, the area, the type of clientele, the added revenue streams, benefits, all of it. But what I will say is this. If you want good people to stay, your compensation has to reflect the value they provide, and it has to leave room for growth. If someone has 20 years of experience and another practitioner has 2, paying them the exact same for everything is probably not going to feel fair for the more experienced practitioner. If someone brings additional skills or tools that create more value for the business, it may make sense to create an additional service or a higher priced service that reflects that and allows them to earn more when they are exercising that expertise. And if you pay so high from the beginning that you have no room to give raises later, that's also a problem. People want to feel that there is movement and appreciation over time. One of the things I was really grateful for once neuromuscular cupping therapy was bringing in additional income was that it gave my clinic more buffer. This was an online course that I offer, and I still offer, that brought in additional revenue. It was passive revenue for me. It let me compensate my practitioners well and create more stability in the business in general. It gave me the ability to pay for team dinners and outings and things that built culture. We went axe throwing and we did float tanks and we did all kinds of fun things together. And while those things aren't a replacement for fair pay, they do contribute to the overall feeling that this is a place where people are invested in and appreciated. Additional income streams can make that a lot easier for employers who want to create a more generous culture. I also want to say this for anyone listening who feels intimidated by all of this. You don't have to already be perfect at leadership in order to become a good employer. But you do need to be willing to learn. You need to be willing to make mistakes, own them, repair them, and not keeping the same ones over and over again. As I've said before, and I'll keep saying it again, I've made so many mistakes. Some of them I've shared in this series already. Some of them I probably haven't even fully processed yet. But the point is not to never mess up. The point is to be the kind of leader who learns, adjusts, and leads by example. If you want your employees to communicate clearly, you need to communicate clearly. If you want them to take responsibility, you need to take responsibility. If you want them to honor the culture, you need to embody it. So if I had to really boil this episode down, I would say this. Good therapists stay where they feel seen, where they feel valued, where they feel aligned with the mission, where communication is clear, where mistakes are handled with integrity, where systems make their job easier, not more confusing, where boundaries and policies are clear, where compensation feels fair and growth feels possible, and where the leader is actually willing to lead. And if you're listening to this and realizing that maybe you have some gaps there, that's okay. You're human. It doesn't mean you're a bad person or that you're doomed. It means you have room to grow. And that's actually the point of this whole conversation. If hiring or team growth is on your mind, but you're still trying to figure out what path really fits you, whether that's staying solo and building a higher level offer, maybe starting an online income stream, or growing a team, the Sustainable Success Blueprint is where I would point you first. It's designed to help you get clear on the next right step according to your own values instead of copying someone else's definition of success. And that's why I love it so much. It helps you paint out a bigger picture, but also get really grounded in what your actual next move is. The link for that is in the show notes. And if you already know you want to hire or you're already in that process and you want real support doing it well, the First Time Employer's Guide inside the Sustainable Body Worker membership is where I would send you next. We get into the math, the policies, the employment advertising, the onboarding, all of it. And you're not doing it alone. You're getting support and coaching through the whole thing. You can find the link to the membership in the show notes as well. At the end of the day, this profession doesn't need more people hiring. It needs better employers creating sustainable, supportive workplaces so that the people who would thrive better as employees actually can thrive. And let me remind you, better employers aren't the ones who have it all figured out from day one. They're the ones who care enough to build with intention, learn from their mistakes, and create a workplace where the right people actually want to stay. As always, thank you so much for being here with me today. If this episode resonated, I would love for you to share it with another massage therapist or employer who needs this conversation. And if you have any thoughts about it, come find me on Instagram at sustainable.bodyworker and let me know. It really is me over there, and I genuinely love hearing what lands for you. Next week, we're going to talk about how to grow a team without recreating the same burnout culture you were trying to escape when you went solo. So I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for listening to The Sustainable Body Worker. If something resonated for you today, grab your free breakthrough session, which includes a custom hypnotherapy track to help you unlock the next level. Grab it now with the link in the show notes. And to hear more, hit subscribe. We'll see you next time.